ముందుగా ప్రియమైన విద్యార్థులకు మరియు వారి తల్లిదండ్రులకు నమస్కారం. నా పేరు కె వెంకన్న జూనియర్ కాలేజ్ చైర్మన్. నేను ఈ రోజు 10th క్లాస్ విద్యార్థులను దృష్టిలో పెట్టుకొని మాట్లాడడం జరుగుతుంది. అది ఏమిటనగా, మనందరికీ తెలుసు, గత 2 సంవత్సరాలుగా కరోనా కారణంగా విద్యార్థులు ఎటువంటి పరీక్షలు రాయకుండానే పై తరగతులు పంపడం జరుగుతుంది. ఫలితంగా ఐఐటి జేఈ మరియు నీట్ లాంటి జాతీయ స్థాయి పరీక్షలను సాధించడం కష్టతరం అవుతుంది. దీనిని అధిగమించడానికి మరియు 10వ తరగతి పరీక్షలో అత్యధిక మార్కులు సాధించడానికి నేను మీ ముందుకు కె వెంకన్న జూనియర్ కాలేజ్ ప్లాట్ఫామ్ ద్వారా అనుభవజ్ఞులైన అధ్యాపకులచే ఉచిత వీడియో క్లాసులు, హ్యాండ్ రిటన్ నోట్స్ మరియు గత ప్రశ్నపత్రాల సమాధానాల విశ్లేషణ ఇవ్వబడును. కాబట్టి నేను విద్యార్థులకు చెప్పదలుచుకున్నది ఏంటంటే, ఈ ఉచిత వీడియో క్లాసులను మరియు హ్యాండ్ రిటన్ నోట్స్లను క్లాస్ రూమ్ లో కూర్చొని చదువుకున్నంత సీరియస్ చదువుకోవాలను. ఇంకొకటి ఏమిటనగా, ఈ యొక్క క్లాసులు విన్న వెంటనే అర్థం చేసుకొని ప్రాక్టీస్ చేయవలను. ప్రాక్టీస్ చేయడం అంటే కేవలం చదవడం కాదు, పేపర్ మీద రాయవలను. అలాగైతే గుర్తుండిపోతుంది. దీంతో పాటు మీ యొక్క నాలెడ్జ్ ని పరీక్షించుకున్న కొరకు త్వరలో ప్రీ ఫైనల్ పరీక్షలు కూడా నిర్వహించబడు. ఈ యొక్క అవకాశాన్ని సద్వినియోగం చేసుకోవాలని 10th చదివే విద్యార్థులకు విజ్ఞప్తి చేస్తున్నాను.
Now let's focus on the 17th lesson of social studies, independent India. We all know that we have achieved independence in the year 1947, August 15th. We have achieved, and we all proudly celebrate our independence celebrations on 15th August every year, right? But what was the journey? We all know that we fought very vigorously. There were so many freedom fighters who gave their life, sacrificed their total life getting the freedom for us. Getting the freedom itself was a greater challenge. And you know, after the colonial rule of almost 2 centuries, we finally got the freedom in the 1947. But after getting the freedom, it wasn't an easy task for any one of the Indian to cope up with the political changes. You know, suddenly we got the freedom, and you know how did independent India manage from 1947 to 77? These 30 years was left an remarkable impressions on every Indian, because the initial stages of the journey where we started as an independent India, every citizen of the country should remarkably know this. Being the citizens of this country, my students, my dear students, you all should know what was the journey, what was the physical and the mental agony, and what was the social and physical and economical changes that have happened in this country. You should know this, because this is our country, so we should get into all this basic stuff of the initial independence, the 30 years, how did India struggle and how did India came up. What were the policies newly introduced, and how did India, what was the journey of India of all this 30 years, we should know. So this lesson gives a journey of about a journey of 30 years of the post India's independence journey from 1947 to 1977. As the time is very limited for us, we are nearing the board examinations. I will not go into the depth of lesson, but cover the skeletal structure of all of the lesson as per the board examination point of view. I repeatedly say in every one of my video that I will not get into the depth of every lesson, but it's not that I'm just leaving them like that, but we'll try to give you short, crisp and the skeletal structure of all the lesson, wherein you will be able to understand the lesson totally and present any question which is being given into the examination and write the answer properly and secure good marks. Now let us start the journey of independence India from 1947 to 1977. So what is it we have done? And the reason, you know, why I wrote all these things so elaborately on the board is, when we are in a class, we see you eye to eye contact, and we understand by facial expression whether really getting the stuff what I am saying, what the teachers are saying or not. But even by any chance you don't get my words fastly, at least you will be able to see what I have written on the board, at least that will stuck to your mind. So this was, I was very greedy that I want all my students of class 10 of social studies getting good marks, 10 out of 10 precisely. Okay. And now what is the first point we'll focus on is, early years of independence was a great challenge to maintain unity and integrity. I'll tell you one thing, children, Getting something itself is a bigger thing, and retaining that is a very even more big responsibility. For example, in your classes, out of your own good commitment and hard work and honesty and sincerity, you become class leaders. You get a badge in your school, or you put a badge on your school dresses as a class leader or all these badges you get across. But retaining that means what? You have a responsibility on your shoulder to render. So it's not easy thing. Imagine for a small class as a class leader only, it's such a responsible thing for us. Imagine such a huge country, India. What must be the challenges that we have faced all these 13 years? The first challenge was to maintain the unity of all the people, and integrity of the country was the biggest challenge what all the Indians and all the political leaders, the scenario what they have faced. That was the most important challenge then. And what did they crave for? To ensure successful running of democratic system, as well bring socio and economic transformation, to ensure that successful working of the democratic system, because India strongly believes in democracy. Democracy is what the Abraham Lincoln has said. He states democracy is a form of government for the people, by the people and to the people. And India strictly believes in this. So obviously they wanted to ensure the successful working of this democratic system, as well as retaining the socio and economic transformation of the country. These were some of the challenges what we all faced. Not only that, to ensure that the system was not imbalanced. Anywhere they wanted to see that the system was never imbalanced. Everything was aligned. Everything was not out of the ecosystem. Everything was being aligned. That was the main criteria, main things which we really struggled in all these years of 30 years post independence. And now after this we understand the struggle what we have done, and now the next challenge immediately comes across was the first general elections, because we all fought for freedom, but we never fought a general elections. And now the most important challenge was the first general elections of the country. And now what is the election means? What? Electing a leader. Selecting a, what democracy always says, the leader will be amongst you only. You elect as a person as a leader, and every one of you contest the elections and select the particular leader and give him a respectable position. This is what democracy says. But the first general elections, majority of the people, there were so many socio-economic differences, and majority of the people were illiterate, they were not literate, they did not understand these intricacies of election and all, and majority of, there were women folk who were still, they did not have got their own self-entity. Majority of the women were known by the names of their fathers or their husbands. This was again a big challenge, because the Indian government at that particular time did not want any single Indian voter to miss the election. And women obviously they are a very vital part of any country, being the 40 to 50% of the population. Women also had to cast the vote, and again the same problem, illiteracy. The post independence India was not literate enough to understand all these intricacies. Majority of the Indians were illiterate, and again the challenge comes, how do we get the elections? How can we contest the elections? Because if education was there, people can really understand, we say something. But the post independent India, things were different, and the majority of them were illiterate, and as I said, women and elderly people were illiterate, and women they did not have their own entities. They were still dependent on their father as well as their husbands. So obviously these were all the challenges which were faced in the first general election, and they were immensely significant for Indian democracy. And obviously this was a challenge to prove that India strongly believes in immense democratic system. The first general elections was going to prove us that we strongly, firmly, emphatically believe in a democratic system, an immense democratic system. And first general elections was very challenging thing for whole of the country. And what did they do? They adopted universal adult franchise. They have adopted universal adult franchise. What is universal adult franchise? Universal adult franchise, any adult above the age of, who reaches the age of 18 has got the right to cast vote. This process is called as universal adult franchise. India also adopted this universal adult franchise in their first general elections. And now the challenges, the first elections were difficult due to social dimensions. As I said, there were many social dimensions. India was divided on the basis of caste, creed and religion. Though they were united, there were some differences which had to be eradicated. All these things came across in the pathway of the first general elections, which was a very bigger challenge. Okay? Election. And what was the best thing they have done? The best thing what they have done in these particular times, the election commission was the brainchild of the Indian government, and election commission was being set up to take care of all the procedures of this election commission. Election commission, what does it do? It takes up into all the activities from the declaration of the date to the completion of the election, and even the collection of these ballots, counting and everything.
Hello friends, myself Sunil Kumar Badal. I have done my BTech from IIT Kanpur. Here at KVC I am chemistry faculty. So first of all, let me wish you all the best for your upcoming board examination. Here at KVC we are the team of IITians and ITians and doctor to help you achieve your dream. So what are you waiting for? Come and join us and fulfill your dream.
Election commission take care, and then election commission was set up. And after this election commission was set up, it was one of the novel idea. It was one of the best ideas where Indian government thought of setting up of an election commission, wherein a body constituting of certain members, recruited persons, highly educated persons will be will be put into the commission, and they will render all the responsibilities of the election process of the country. Okay. And now when are these first 3 general elections held in the country? The first general election was held in the country in 1952, 1957 and 1962. And in all these 3 years, Indian National Congress won. That's a different story. But these 3 years, 1952, mark these years, 1952, 1957 and 1962, Indian National Congress, the 3 general elections were held in the country, the post-independence, and in these 3 elections, Indian National Congress only won. As I said, that's a different story now. And this is all about your first general election. Okay. And now coming back to the one-party dominance. And I see this point, I said Indian National Congress won. What does that indicate, you students? That there was only a single party which is dominant for all these years, from 1952 to 1960. From 1952, the 5 years again, 1957 again, the 5 years, 1962 till 1960. There was only one national party, Indian National Congress Party. Though they had small parties, hardly they got any significant votes to take up the government, to form the government. Only Indian National Congress was the most dominant party. It had it was the only one party which always gained, which always got into prominence, and which always won the elections with a huge majority. And this is not an advisable thing, this is not a healthy thing for any democratic country like India. You should always have an opposition party for you to correct. You should always have the criticism. First, criticism is always equally important for success, because there is always a probability that we might go astray in our tracks. What do you mean by astray? There is always a probability that any one of us can commit mistakes. So if there is a person who can scrutinize, there is a party who can scrutinize or even criticize, obviously the party which is in vogue, the party which is in power will always be more careful, because you are answerable. Opposition party is as well the representatives of the people only, right? As the government which is in vogue, the government which won the elections is a representative, the government is also the representative of the people. As such only, the opposition party is also the representative of the people. So obviously one party dominance is never advisable in a democratic form of government and democratic countries like India. This was the most alarming factor which happened, which prevailed in all these years in the country. Only one party dominance, that was Indian National Congress, and there were so many alarming factors which were coming up across. And what were they? From 1951 to 1964, Congress was only dominant party. As I said, this Indian National Congress was the only one dominant party, unparalleled, unquestioned. which was unhealthy for the democratic country like India. Later it came to, later afterwards, what happened after 1960, Jawaharlal Nehru ji 1960 he passed away, and then Lal Bahadur Shastri ji came, became the Prime Minister of India after Nehru ji, and initially after Lal Bahadur Shastri ji passed away, in some dramatic situations, unforeseen situations where Indira Gandhi ji took as the Prime Minister of the country. And there is no threat of opposition party, and obviously Indian National Congress had no threat of opposition party. A threat of opposition party is equally important for the healthy and the smooth running of a government. It's equally important. That's what has happened. No threat of opposition party, serious shortcomings also. There were so many shortcomings and huge challenges which came across. Always tell you students one thing: if any government has to run smoothly, especially in the democratic form of the government, and healthy opposition is equally important. Without a healthy opposition, believe me students, a party can never be, the ruling party cannot be successful for a prolonged period, and you should never have one party dominance in any country, and if that continues, believe me, the fall of that party begins, and a healthy opposition party is always required. And now the other topics which you are going to cover in this lesson after this self-dominance one party are, we are done with that. Now demand for state reorganizations. All these, everybody was juggling, the whole of the country was trying to get across this in first general elections and self-dominant party, and what were other issues which were bothering? We cannot, what were the other issues which were being bothered? The other issues which were really bothering were demand for state reorganizations. During the time of the independence, when we got the independence, we were not this many states as we were. All of them were united together. We had Madras, Calcutta and Mumbai, Bombay and all. Now we got the names of Chennai, Mumbai and Kolkata and all these things, but initially it was Calcutta and Madras and Mumbai, and we had princely states and provinces and all. But there was a demand, there was a huge demand, urge for reorganization of the states based on the regional languages. And the place near the Madras, you find majority of the people people speaking from Tamil, Kannada, Oriya, Malayali as well as Telugu people, all of them were lived together near and surrounding the places of the Madras. But there was continuous rupture which was not subsided from the Telugu speaking people, that they wanted a separate state, separate domicile state for especially Telugu speaking people, and that was very growing up, mounted a lot. Okay, so the demand for the states for the reorganization on the basis of the language was mounting a lot. Okay, the challenges based on the reorganization of the states on the basis of the language, as I said, the reason I am writing, again I am telling the reason I have written all these points is, even though you miss when I say something, when you are watching the video, have a glance, at least you will be able to understand the points, and these points are the skeletal structures which will cover whole of the gist of this particular topic, demand for the state of this reorganization. Country was divided into, as I said, country was divided into Calcutta, Madras, Bombay, central provinces. This many states were not there when India got its independence. These all were the issues what the post-independent India, the 30 years that they faced were all, this is also one of the most alarming problem which India faced. And there was a committee by name JVP committee requested reorganization of states on the basis of the language because of the things which were getting flayed up. And there was a question to the democracy, and so obviously there was a committee, JVP committee requested the government and submitted its proposal to reorganize the states based on the languages. And what did happen? Persisted in the, actually where was this more persistent? This reorganization of the states in whole of the country was more persistent in the southern part of the country, southern states of the country, as I said, especially where the people lived in this Madras region, the Telugu speaking people lived. They insisted, in fact they persisted that they want a special state, a Telugu speaking special state they wanted a special state to reorganize the state based on the language. They insisted on that. Okay.